Hello, I'm Anya Lichtarovich and this is Somewhere on Earth. I'm in London. It is Tuesday, the 14th of April 2026. Welcome to the Global Tech Podcast. Coming up today. Artificial intelligence is rapidly changing how we create, communicate, and even make a living. In the music industry, artists are already grappling with the opportunities and challenges that AI brings. From tools that can help with songwriting to fears about whether machines could one day produce music that rivals human creativity. But the story isn't only about disruption. In other areas, AI is being developed to break down barriers and expand access to digital services. One company is building technology designed to automatically translate spoken language into sign language, potentially opening up everything from video calls to online entertainment for millions of deaf users around the world. We explore how AI is reshaping the creative industries and how it could transform accessibility and communication. From musicians navigating the streaming and AI era to the technology aiming to make the digital world more inclusive. It's all coming up on Somewhere on Earth, the Global Tech Podcast. Platforms like Spotify, Apple Music and YouTube promise to transform the music industry, giving artists a global audience and new ways to earn a living. But for most musicians, that promise hasn't quite materialised. A new study from the Oxford Internet Institute looks at what life is really like for artists trying to build a career in the streaming age, from the Netherlands and Brazil to Nigeria and South Korea. It reveals what researchers call the streaming paradox. Musicians rely heavily on streaming platforms, but the money they earn from them is often far too small to live on. I spoke to Professor Robert Prey, one of the authors of the report, and asked him to explain what that paradox means for musicians today.
Well, the streaming paradox is essentially the fact that they find streaming platforms to be incredibly important to their careers, but they are also incredibly disappointed with the royalties, the payments they receive on streaming platforms.
Sounds a bit like podcasting.
Yes. Yeah, there are parallels.
If you ask me. Because we need those, obviously, podcasting platforms and streaming services, but the reward for each play is minimal. And that's the same for musicians. The thought of streaming, it was meant to open so many doors, wasn't it? But it hasn't done that at all, has it?
No, that's right. I think there was this idea that streaming would provide, once, we have that shift from Napster or peer-to-peer file sharing to digital downloads and then to streaming, and streaming became legalized. It became part of the music industries. It became a source of revenue generation. And I think it was supposed to be the place where musicians could generate some revenue from the recordings. And it hasn't, by and large. There are, of course, musicians. There are, of course, the ones we all know that make a very decent living from streaming, but their streams have to be very high, incredibly high, and they have to, the numbers that you need to reach in order to make an income are increasing all the time, because most streaming platforms pay on a pro rata model, which essentially means that you get a percentage of the overall revenue generated by that platform every month based on the percentage of plays that you get. So if the amount of streams on that platform are growing, then you need to also grow your streams in order to maintain the same income as you did previously.
And most musicians in this study earn less than about €10,000 a year. And that's not really enough to live off. That just shows how hard it is to make money as a musician now.
Yes, and I mean, we have to realize that this has always been the case for musicians. Musicians have always had a really difficult time making money from recordings, and even before that. before the recording era. And so, in some ways, it's more of the same, we could say. The recording industry has always been quite a difficult industry for musicians to enter and to make a living in, and it's always been quite exploitative of musicians. But our study, to be clear, we wanted to look at musicians outside of the Anglo-American centers of the music industry, outside of the US, outside of the UK. These countries, or the experiences of musicians in these countries, have been studied quite a bit by researchers such as myself. So we looked at musicians in the Netherlands, in South Korea, in Nigeria, in Chile, and in Brazil to try to get a more global perspective on how musicians were being impacted by streaming. And what we found was that, by and large, many of the same experiences, were shared, or these experiences of having a really difficult time trying to earn a living from streaming alone were shared by musicians across the board, across all of 5 of these countries.
And these musicians are spending so much time being online, aren't they? On their promotion, on their social medias. They're more like influencers, really, or trying to be influencers than musicians sometimes, aren't they?
Yes, this is something that we really saw coming through the survey and the interviews that we did. So something like a quarter of the musicians we spoke to spend about half of their working time on what you could call promotional labor, like the work of promoting themselves online, getting their name out there, getting their content out there. And some of them said, yeah, it sometimes feels like I'm more of an influencer or a content creator than I am a musician. Some of them don't mind it. They find there's some, there's a creative element to this. They find it, interesting to be engaging with fans. They might have some skills that they're developing, that they're creating, that they feel like that is quite enriching to their careers in a way. While a lot of them feel that it's an extra burden and it's not something that they feel is really or should be really central to their careers as musicians. They would rather spend their time working on their music, writing the music, and performing their music.
But it also depends slightly on where they're geographically based, because don't Nigerian musicians, did you not find that they were saying, actually, this part, the influencer part is quite useful for us, but that's not necessarily true everywhere, is it?
Yeah, this is what we found to be quite interesting in this study, where it really depends a lot on which countries we looked at, or the musicians where they were based, also in which genres. So, like you said, Nigerian musicians, they spent the most time online promoting their music, communicating with fans, checking their online metrics, and so forth. They spent the most time on those aspects of their career, and they were also the most positive about these things. They, by and large, were reacted quite positively to this type of, promotional labor or communication that they had to engage in. While musicians in the Netherlands, for example, or South Korea were less enthusiastic about this. And it's interesting because musicians from Nigeria that we talked to were the lowest income earners out of our sample, but they were the most positive about streaming and about the need to be on social media.
So there is an influence here of music genre, of local culture, I guess, and local attitude towards maybe, the career of being a musician that also impacts. It's not only the streaming technology part side of it.
No, this is really important because, we can talk about musicians, and that's a very broad category, and it involves so many different types of musicians. Even if you just look at popular musicians, which represented the vast majority of our sample, you have to break it down into different genres. And Afrobeats artists coming out of Nigeria are much more comfortable with the online aspect of their work than folk artists in different countries, for example, or rock artists in different countries. And sometimes this is also a generational thing, right? The younger artists, which Afrobeats artists tended to be, are also more comfortable than the older artists. So they can slice it up into country of origin, but also genre and also generation.
But you have to be good at the tech side to make use of it, really, by the sounds of things.
Yeah, well, unless you sign to a major label and you have a team that works for you, yes, the majority of the musicians we talk to are what some researchers call ordinary musicians. And this is the vast majority of musicians out there. They don't often get our attention, but they are the ones who are making music, trying to build a career, making some income, often having side jobs in order to support themselves. But they don't have a team. They have to do a lot of this all by themselves.
So they're constantly feeding the algorithm, so to speak.
They are constantly feeding the algorithm. They're constantly trying to understand how it works, trying to figure out what type of content to release, when to release it, and so forth.
The research looks at musicians across 5 countries and highlights how streaming, social media and platform algorithms are reshaping what it means to build a career in music. You can read the full report, Musicians at Work in the Platform and AI Era, from the Oxford Internet Institute online. We'll also be speaking to Robert Prey in the Pod Extra version of the show. Please search pod.fan somewhere on Earth podcast. Go to the page and subscribe. For just $10 a month, you can get lots more soap. Artificial intelligence is increasingly being used to tackle accessibility challenges, and one area seeing rapid innovation is sign language translation. The Polish technology company Migam has spent more than a decade building services that connect deaf users with sign language interpreters online. Now it's developing a generative AI system designed to automatically translate spoken language into sign language in real time. The goal is to make digital services from customer support and banking to video calls and streaming platforms much more accessible for deaf communities around the world. I spoke to Paweł Potakowski from Migam about how the technology works and why accessibility is becoming a growing focus for businesses and governments.
My name is Paweł Potakowski and I'm Chief Communication Officer in Migam.ai.
Migam.ai, tell me what this is all about.
I need to start from the background. So we are a Polish social impact company that we are providing online connection to sign language interpreters. We are the biggest player in Central and Eastern Europe, providing more than 500,000 interpretation already. We are working in Poland for more than 2,400 clients, including government, business, a lot of banks, telecommunication companies, and so on. Our clients decided to use our solution to be accessible for their clients and customers. It's because of a legal obligation, for example, under European Accessibility Act or Americans with Disabilities Act. Accessibility is a must-have globally for a lot of businesses. So this is why we are earning enough money to build our own generative AI model for sign language automation. First, what we have done, it was 2012 when we have built our first neural network for sign language automation. Of course, the technology has evolved and we have evolved into what we have here now during Web Summit in Qatar. We are showing our solution that is already working in American Sign Language. The next sign languages that we are training is, for example, Polish Sign Language. And now, in MENA region, we are looking for a partner to start building Arabic Sign Language. You need to know that each country has got their own sign language, and this is why we need to find a proper partner with understanding of the culture, regional culture, technology, and also with the heart open to accessibility.
Some countries have more than one sign language and that makes things more complicated. But how would I as a user actually use this platform?
Imagine, first of all, that you are opening a streaming platform and as a hearing person, you are, for example, looking for subtitles because you don't know this language that video is recorded. It's very easy for you because you just open the subtitles button. Imagine that deaf people cannot do it because when you check in every streaming platform that is available now, how many sign language interpreted videos there are, maybe one, maybe two per platform maximum. So for them, access to entertainment will be, in our opinion, the first main point where we should implement our solution. So will be just an additional button in Netflix, Amazon, Disney or any other streaming platform just to give those people access to entertainment. After this, we could build other solutions, for example, bidirectional communication. Thanks to it, it will be again just additional button in WebEx, Zoom, Teams, name the platform, where, for example, one person will speak and the second one will see the sign language on the screen. This is the future of communication for deaf people.
And what's your market like at the moment? How many people use this?
When you count globally people who are deaf and for whom the only way for their communication is available, it's 80 million people globally. Data from World Health Organization count that the number of people with hearing problems is between 1 to 2% that they count as deaf person. But it's 80 million people for whom there is no other option, only this. I must share with you that my personal biggest mistake was thinking that deaf people could just simply read.
And obviously that's not a simple thing, which is why this sign language platform is needed. But how many people use yours?
In Poland, we are providing this service for around 400,000 people who are deaf and need our support. But you need to know that from our perspective, it doesn't matter the number of end users, like a deaf person who is opening the system, because we've built it. The service that we are mostly providing with the live person interpretation, we build it as web progressive app. Just directly open it on the web browser, connect to live person interpreter for now, in the future to our avatar, and then communicate with them, make a phone calls, for example, and so on. So for now, it's working in this way that those 2,400 clients that we've got are paying us for being accessible for their clients and customers.
So that's banks, that's governments, that's local authorities, those kind of people.
Absolutely. If I could name some brands, I will do it. If not, I will stop it. Don't be deaf for the needs of the deaf people, and open your minds and share this. That one, each country has got their own sign language. Two, when you are born deaf or you lose hearing ability in early beginning of your life, written text is like a foreign language for you. Use it even like something interesting to share during the party with other people, just to share the knowledge about the needs of deaf people.
That was Paweł Potakowski from Migam. He was speaking to us at Web Summit Qatar, where the company was demonstrating its AI-powered sign language technology designed to help deaf users communicate more easily online and access digital services. Now, if you would like to connect with us, then please email hello@somewhereonearth.co. You can also comment on our socials. Steve Clark, thank you for your post on Facebook about last week's show and how the UK government is thinking about restricting VPN use for teenagers. Steve writes, if they want to put restrictions on kids, then everyone will have to prove their age to show they are not too young for such things. That's a bit invasive. VPNs have many uses, and kids tend to find ways around restrictions. I agree with you 100%, Steve, being the mum of teenagers myself. And you can join the conversation on our group Somewhere on Earth, the Global Tech Podcast on Facebook. Don't forget to give us a rating on your favourite podcasting platform. It really makes a difference and helps our downloads grow. The production manager is Liz Toohey, and I'm the editor. Until next week, bye-bye.